Talking about protectionism, Prabalda, where do you see the Chinese ambition going? I mean, we have been hearing all sorts of things from all the corners. I mean, they have the currency of becoming the most powerful country in the world. They devalue the currency vis-a-vis to dollar. And Chinese have always expressed that they want to be the global hotspot for many things, be it supply chain, be it delivery. Uh, Vis-a-vis investments and economic distancing, how much is it possible vis-a-vis China to economically distance ourselves? And not only from the emerging economies point of view, but also the developed ones.
This is a multi-million dollar question, of course, and as you know about the Chinese ambitions, I will talk about the economic distancing in a minute. But like I said, it's related to what I said earlier, actually, to some extent, is that there will be some degree of distancing by all means, but I don't think it will be anti-globalization to the fullest. It will be reconstruction of some parts of the supply chain. And primarily because that's such a huge differentiator which China has made. I don't think India or Mexico or Poland, these are sort of, or Vietnam for that matter, we come even close to what they've done in terms of infrastructure. Their ability to turn around things, manufacture on scale, develop, there is no question. So therefore, that is not going to happen, even though it's a pet topic. Some reconstruction of supply chains will happen for, like I mentioned to you, for distributing the risk, for making strategic reserves of certain materials and items, yes. And India should be able to play in that. If India can play in that, that will be big enough for us. I don't think we can even think of doing what China has done till we get our other acts together. Now, coming to China's currency thing, which you mentioned, or the whole ambition. See, in the last 30 years, after China went on this path, 40 years actually now, 1980.
Since Mao Zedong.
Yes, exactly. So they have achieved their first priority, which is to be a dominant player on the world economic stage, to be an economic power, right? Today is the world's second largest economy. By all projections, which you see from IMF and elsewhere, by 2025, they would have overtaken the US and be the world's largest economy. And by 2040, they would be 3 times the size of US. This is just to put perspective right? So in the last 40 years, their dream of being an economic superpower has been achieved and it's progressing. But this will set it back a little bit. I think it will, but not much. So this is the economic superpower bit. The thing which they have not been able to do so far, and I think that is the plan which they are working towards for the last 10 years at least, is to be a currency superpower as well. Today, think about it, with 15% of global trade, of global GDP, China's yuan, the renminbi, is just 2% of world trade. It's just 2%. Whereas the US has 80% of world trade and 66% of the world reserves, of central bank reserves, are with the US dollar.
Correct.
So their game for the next 30 years or 40 years, starting from 2010 or thereabouts, has been to get currency superpower as well, right? And conspiracy theories apart, and there are many which are doing around and which, one can look at. But those theories apart, challenging the supremacy of the US dollar is a fact. And I'll explain to you how that will explain all the other questions of how China will come on. Let me just take a couple of minutes. It's a very complex subject, so I'll try to make it as simple as possible in the short time that we have.
Sure.
See the facts. See 1970. So, and the facts, you have to go back to context. So 1973, that's where it all started. So Nixon unilaterally broke the gold standard in 1973, right? And with Kissinger, he negotiated the petrodollar agreement with the Saudis, and that led to the creation of OPEC as a powerful entity.
Correct.
Essentially, it said that to sell oil only in US dollars wherever you sell in the world, right? And therefore came the petrodollar concept and all of that. Other commodities followed over the years. And this created a massive demand for the US dollar globally. And that is how, and that essentially had two impacts, two large impacts. First impact is USD became the de facto reserve currency of the world. And second, it allowed successive US governments from then on, to go on a massive spending spree with higher and higher budget deficits without paying the price for it. This is paid by people like us who take the US dollar as a reserve currency. And the third thing which I did was, so the two things, it became the reserve currency of the world and allowed US governments to go on a massive spending spree from 75 onwards, and spend higher and higher deficits without sort of paying the price for it. No one paid, we paid the price for it. And the third thing was, being a reserve currency, US benefited from other countries' mistakes as well, like Mexico, Brazil, etc. at that time. Right. Because with a currency crash in, say, Mexico, Brazil, people bought the US dollar.
Right.
So that was the genius of Henry Kissinger when he made this transition. Okay. So today we are 80% of the world is the grip of the US financial system. Now, in this situation, as of 2020, which is now, about 25% of the world population of 2 billion people roughly across 25 countries, mind you, 25 countries are putting up what is called an anti-dollar trade front. And this is led by China and Russia. This is led by China and Russia, but it has countries like Venezuela, Angola, Mongolia, Brazil, Iran. The attempt is to do a bilateral trade on main commodities like oil, coal, gas, soya, coffee. Those are the main ones on the yuan by bypassing the US dollar and thus the entire US financial system. I don't know how much, whether you know this, but if you and I buy a US dollar through the banking system, we subject ourselves to the US security law, to the US laws of financial transactions.
It's a debt.
So, yeah, just by buying or selling a US dollar, you are subject to those laws. That is the stranglehold which they have. So these 25 odd countries of the anti-dollar front are trying this for the last couple of years now. Japan too, and this is interesting, if Anurag was here, you would have heard, and Japan too has struck a bilateral deal with China recently for trade in their respective currencies for certain items.
Yes.
So this is now the response which the world is giving under the leadership of China and Russia to take on the dollar trade. Okay. Now, despite all this, yuan at the moment, as I said, just about 2% of the world trade. Why is this? Because the basic problem is China still has capital controls. That is the basic thing. And they have no transparency on their government data. These are the two basic things which are preventing people from going gung-ho onto this at this moment. But this will change. This will change over time because China will recognize that this has to be done. So once this happens, all that will matter then is how confident are people about the yuan as a currency which will not depreciate, or which has an open enough policy that it will not depreciate. That's all that matters. Then the switch can happen very fast. So this is one. The fourth leg of China's strategy in all this is the digital currency. You may have read that Facebook recently, about 6-7 months ago, launched was talking of launching what is called Libra. Libra is
crypto,
their equivalent of a digital currency, but it has obviously been stopped by the US regulators, and discussions are on and all of that stuff, and for the right reasons, I think. However, the People's Bank of China is going very fast on the digital currency route. Very fast.
You're talking about the cryptocurrency, right?
No, it's not. Yeah, it's a digital currency. It's not Bitcoin. It is not Bitcoin. So it is modified. It is modified to some extent. The exit of Jack Ma. So these are all different things which you have to understand to make sure that the exit of Jack Ma from Alibaba many people believe, including Gu Shengwei, who is a Chinese dissenter, is because of this reason. Because the Communist Party of China wanted to control Ant Financial. Ant Financial is Alipay, which has 1 billion plus users, which is already on a digital currency. It's not a cryptocurrency. It's already on a digital currency. And Tencent, which is the other large company, which is called, the product is WeChat, has 1 billion users. So these were digital currencies taking shape in such a big way in China. And with Jack Ma gone and all of that, this is basically under the PBOC control at the moment. Whatever people might say, it is under PBOC control. So they are doing it well to dominate the digital currency markets and creating that market there. You must have heard that India recently has said that RBI also wants to look at the digital currency for India. So this is a time an idea whose time has come, and technology-wise, China is far ahead of US in these regards, far ahead. And how the PBOC is doing it well is, it is talking about linking the digital currency to the stability of the yuan. So it's not like a Bitcoin in that sense, not at all. So they're going to link it to the yuan for stability, and the traceability will be there through blockchain. So it's a damn good mix, and this is something which we'll have to look at seriously as we go along.
Sure.
The fifth part of this whole strategy is gold. I don't know whether you're aware that China has been the biggest buyer of gold over the last 15 years in the world, more than India as well.
Yes. It's
they have been quietly operating on the gold market and accumulating reserves of gold. People would have asked, why is it done? That is the fifth leg of the strategy. They have recently opened about a year ago, I think, or a year and a half ago, something called the Petro Yuan Futures.
Okay.
Which is the only futures contracts for the oil markets in Asia. And they're backed it by gold reserves. They have done this. So now it makes sense, right? If you put all these things together, it makes sense about what their whole strategy is to dominate and to challenge the supremacy of the US dollar and the financial system as a whole. One thing which has been, now with all this, one thing which has been completely unreported in the press is in the last 3 weeks, with all the turbulence in the global markets which was going on, the Swiss franc crashed. The yen, these are all stable currencies, that also went down substantially, not to speak about other currencies, including India. Australian dollar crashed significantly, right? Even US treasuries fell overseas, because governments had to sell treasuries to get US dollar, to get control of the US dollar. So they were selling US treasuries. As a result, the Fed opened a window, a small window for a few months. It's called a swap window, so that governments could give their US treasuries so they don't sell, and they give them US dollars in return. So they did all that. In all this turmoil, you know what was the most stable currency? The Chinese yuan. Not only the currency, the bond market, the Chinese bond market, which is, if I remember correctly, it's a $13 trillion market. The second largest in the world, by the way. Second largest in the world, the bond market of China. $13 trillion, I think, is the number. The bond market of China actually saw inflows of about $10 billion. They saw inflows. And because they saw inflows, the returns which they gave in this last 1 month period against the global returns or US returns of minus some 5-6%, they returned 1.3% plus in this turmoil. So this is the situation. So this basically says that there are people who are believing this whole strategy is going to work. This whole strategy is going to work. And there is credibility even in this time of this crisis. So this is highly interesting. So this whole currency bit, the next economic war will be fought through currency. That is the given. It will come through currency, not the equity markets.
The third part of our conversation will be the most interesting, the China. I think we should upload this separately. Huh?
So they're all related. Yes. So I think the coronavirus will actually step up China on this pedestal because of the reasons I mentioned to you, and especially because they have the technological edge in digital currency coming in the bond markets. So this bond market data, which I gave you just now, is actually hard data which is there to show the confidence. So, and this is, so therefore the three things before I stop this topic, the three things are for China to succeed in the strategy and get, and displace the US dollar, etc. The first is the bond market stability has to be seen. No volatility, usual spreads, all that, which I mentioned to you. The second is, it is now posturing as a good creditor. It has already talked of suspending bilateral loan payments from all the countries it's due. It actually said that. Now, whether it's put it into policy or not is still awaited. But they have told the G20 that we are willing to suspend bilateral loan repayments in this situation. So it is showing itself as a good creditor. And this whole Belt and Road project, which they have done, fits into this context perfectly.
Even Africa, for that matter. Even Africa, the way they went with debt trap.
Yeah, absolutely. So Africa is part of that. Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. The Sino-African trade is the largest segment. It's not Sino-US. It's not Africa-US. And Africa is going towards the anti-dollar trade front as well, by the way. So the whole Belt and Road project now has to be seen in that context.
And the third
is, as I mentioned, and the third is the technology. The technology, they are years ahead. They're years ahead of anybody. So this link to digital currency, if they can make that happen, there's something called OneConnect, which is a Chinese product from the insurance business, I think. Now, they have a cloud-based application on which financial institutions of 16 countries today are working. 16 countries are already working. So therefore, on technology, they are way ahead on digital currency, way ahead. So if these three things can work, then all they need is a good legal system and open capital account. And then, of course, a transparent monetary policy. And if they can do that, then USD and the whole world as we know it can change. Yes, of course.
Thank you so much, Prabalda. This was so insightful. And the Chinese clip, we should be uploading this separately because there are a lot of people who are interested in China specifically because other parts are, available everywhere else. Prabalda, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for speaking to Business World. And this was really insightful. And stay safe. All the best to you and your family. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Abhinav.
Thank you for joining us.